World headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Let's speak to Luke Stephen, comedian, and Kate Smurthwaite, comedian and political activist. Good afternoon to you both. Kate, firstly, was Jimmy Carr wrong to use this material?
I mean, this is really, really horrible stuff, isn't it? It doesn't seem like a joke to me. It just seems like a really horrible thing to say, suggesting that an element of the Holocaust, which killed thousands and thousands of people, was in some way justified or indeed good. I mean, how utterly nauseating. And yes, he's always been an edgy comedian, and he said lots of things over the years that I sure wouldn't put in my show, and, I probably wouldn't put on my channel if I ran a channel. But to me, this is just, and it comes at a time when the PCSC bill is already criminalising members of the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller communities and making their lives incredibly difficult. They're a community that has been discriminated against since the Holocaust and well before that, and continues to be discriminated against now. I think that it's clear that this is not the right line. It's not that there's a question of, there are all sorts of things which we would not want on air. There's no magic line that we can all agree on. We just have to be part of an ongoing conversation about what's okay and what isn't. And to me, I can't believe that this is the bit that's up for debate. Like, this obviously isn't. There are other things which we could discuss. No one will ever agree 100% on the line. But this is so far the other side of the line that, it's not a joke. It's just a nauseating piece of hate speech.
Luke Stephen, it's not a joke. There's no debate here.
Yeah, I'm astounded. To be quite honest with you, it's clearly a joke. He's not saying anything positive happened in the Holocaust. It's a classic Jimmy Carr joke.
That's exactly what he says.
I didn't interrupt you, Kate. Let me finish what I'm saying. It's a joke about misdirection.
I didn't say anything obnoxious.
No, Kate, please, come on. Let's have a grown-up debate here. It was a clear joke about misdirection. It's a clear joke about misdirection.
What's a grown-up debate about a man justifying somebody's...
Kate, let's just hear...
You having a laugh?
Let's just hear Luke...
Let me get my point out.
Let's hear what Luke says on this, and we'll come back to you, Kate.
It's a clear joke about misdirection. He sets up a joke about the Holocaust, which we all know is terrible. He then says, but we forget about the thousands of gypsies that were killed in the Holocaust. We also know that's terrible. He then says, because no one ever once talks about the positives, it's a joke about misdirection. The audience are laughing ironically, and we know that's not a funny thing for us to be laughing at. It's about context and where he's doing it. He's doing it in a stand-up show, and a show called Dark Material. He isn't doing it at a Nazi rally.
So, Luke, who's the target of the joke, Luke? Because I often think, comedy, to me, certainly as an observer and as a fan, and lots of mates and people I know do comedy, it's about where it comes from and what the target is. So in this case, I think we can all agree that Jimmy Carr's probably not a mad racist or anti-Semite, but who's the target of that line?
Target the joke is at the audience for they're not being aware about the deaths of gypsies and homosexuals and Jehovah's Witnesses, which he also says in the bit. Also, as well on Twitter, the bit you've tagged us in from his show, Jimmy Carr does a joke about incest. But none of us here, we're not debating going, this is absolutely disgusting. This could trigger people who have been abused by their fathers, because we know he's telling jokes. So why are we selecting this bit? It is a false narrative here we are putting across. We are pretending that we are offended by something. We're pretending we don't know he's joking.
Kate, I said at the beginning in my intro, you probably didn't hear the very beginning of this, that actually the target was that he was those who mock or just don't care about gypsies. The target is the almost ritual omission of gypsies in the story of the Holocaust.
But you can't joke about people who have horrendously negative attitudes towards members of the GRT community by joining in. I mean, that doesn't work like that. If he was to make a joke about people who have failed to understand the breadth of the Holocaust, okay. If he was making a joke about how history books don't cover this stuff as much as they should, great. If he was making a joke about the widespread...
That's what he did do. That was his joke.
Or all of those things.
That was his joke. That's exactly what he did.
No, he's not.
That's exactly what he did.
He's not. Listen to the actual words he said. He's just reciting straightforward hate speech. And when I heard it, I thought I better go and look at the context, because maybe he's saying this is something that's really obnoxious that I don't agree with. And, here's where I heard it and here's why I'm criticising it. But he doesn't. He just says it. And the audience laugh along. And I've been discussing this all morning on the TV and yesterday on Sky News as well. And my Twitter timeline is absolutely loaded with people saying, too right, I also hate those communities. This is not Nobody, do you know what I mean? The people who already have those horrendous attitudes are not going, oh, we've been ridiculed here. They're going, exactly, finally somebody who agrees with it.
That's obviously
and that
terrible.
tells us that it hasn't worked as a joke. It's worked as a piece of hate speech.
Luke,
it's fired up the general population.
We know it works as a joke.
Levels, at a time when this community is being embattled by the current legislation.
Let's get another response in from Luke.
We know it works as a joke, as he did it in a theatre in front of thousands of people, and he got a huge laugh and a round of applause.
Yeah,
Jimmy Carr is guilty of doing a joke that works.
Hitler said quite a lot of stuff in theatres.
Oh, yeah, to laughter, didn't he, Adolf Hitler? There is no one in that audience who's going, thank God Jimmy Carr has finally said what we're all thinking. Adolf Hitler was not a stand-up comedian. Adolf Hitler was not a stand-up comedian.
There are people all over my Twitter feed saying exactly that. So, you know, if it was a joke...
Oh, okay, so he meant it then. That's a good point. Because there's hatred on your Twitter line, Jimmy Carr's a racist, and he actually meant every word he said. Brilliant argument. What are you saying?
Well,
what are you saying?
What I'm saying is that if he didn't mean it that way, then surely he would have come out immediately and said, I'm so sorry, that joke...
So you think he did mean it that way?
Wasn't what he was saying, but he didn't. Last night he was on stage saying, I'm going down swinging, I don't repent of a thing, and yes, there's going to be Holocaust jokes, strap in. That's not the sound of somebody...
But Kate, would you recognise, Kate, Luke raised the point earlier, Kate, that in Jimmy's routine, other parts, he talks about incest. Nobody thinks objectively that is funny either, but comedians find a way to get into all sorts of uncomfortable territory, right?
Ian, I don't think there's a subject you can't talk about in comedy. I don't think that you can't do jokes about minority communities, and I don't think that you can't do jokes about the Holocaust. The question is, what joke are you doing? Are you doing a joke that sends up, people who don't take it seriously? Are you doing a joke that sends up those people who are not interested in getting justice and those people who are still bigoted despite years and years of it being explained to them how very, very wrong and offensive they are? Of course, and I know many comedians who talk on stage about really serious subjects like sexual assault and things like that, but they're not poking fun at victims of sexual assault. They're poking fun at the police's failure to prosecute.
So do you think Jimmy Carr...
failure to sort these problems out?
When I said to Luke, who was the target on this, he identified who he thought that was. Who do you think was the target of that routine?
This
you think
inverted commas joke, and I use the very heavy bunny is members of the Gypsy, Roma and Traveller community. There's no other... You can't do a joke about wishing saying you're glad a group of people weren't brutally
He's not glad they died, though. Why are you pretending he's glad that they died?
And then say that
he's not glad about that.
The people you've mentioned aren't the targets of it. Of course they are.
This is such a false argument. You know full well Jimmy Carr is not glad that thousands of gypsies died in the Holocaust. You know he's not glad about that. You know it's a joke about misdirection. You know it's a joke about misdirection. You know he misleads the audience, and you know he hits them with a joke that pulls them back and they go, oh, God, but that's not what we expected. You know it's a joke. You know it's a setup.
He doesn't twist it round and say, I didn't mean that. There's another way.
You know he doesn't mean it because he's doing it at a stand-up comedy show in a show called Dark Material. You know it. He would have been touring that joke. He would have been touring this joke for over a year as well. Someone
doesn't mean that you can do it. If I come around your house and say, hey, I'm wearing a T-shirt that says might stab someone, it's not your fault when I stab you. You can't just warn someone.
How is that even remotely comparable to you coming around my house? How is that remotely comparable? You coming around my house and stabbing me and someone seeing a Jimmy Carr show. That's not even remotely comparable. It's one of the worst arguments I've ever heard. Jimmy Carr's joke is comparable to you coming to my house in a T-shirt and stabbing me. Are you having a laugh? What on earth are you talking about?
They're being criminalised right now because of the prevalence of these attitudes in our society.
Listen, I step in for no other reason than time, but Kate Smurthwaite, Luke Stephen, thank you, both comedians and writers with very different views there. Whoa. As you heard, 0344 499 1000. I only asked when is a joke not funny. That was the question we were throwing out. Specifically to Jimmy Carr, if you want, the wider argument, which dips into the freedom of speech, where is the line, etc., all calls welcome on anything connected to what you've just heard. 0344 499 1000.
Good talk. Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk Radio. Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV. The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.